Level 2, nice to meet you. So we're going to pick up off for level 2. We're going to pick up where we left off on level 1, where we have just a plain window that says hello world. That is the bare minimum. It outputs something, but it doesn't take any input. So we're going to add a little piece here where we're going to take input from the user. So we're going to X out of that. And let's take a look at our code one more time. We have IOStream. We have our int main. We have std cout hello world. And then we have input ignore. We're doing something funky here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this line, because that line was, hey, don't get input. It said input ignore. cin would be c input, but we just said ignore it, and that's not what we want. This time we're going to save it somewhere. So the other thing we're going to change is we actually have to include something new. We're going to include string. Now, when we include string, what that means whenever we type in include is that we're including the whole library of things that are now available to us. And before, we were just able to do input and output. We can now use strings. A string is a special variable. So a string would be any set of words, letters, numbers, anything that you could see characters put together and could be a string. So for example, hello world could be a string. So I could have a string that says hello world. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a string that is a name. Okay? So I've got a string that is a name, and you see it's bugging out on me. Why is it bugging out? Because I didn't do namespace standard. All right, so now all of a sudden you see it popped up. We had the std : string and then name. And what this line of code, this line right here, does is it declares a variable called name. And so it says there's a name. We are going to call a name, be ready for a name. So let's ask and get a name. Change our message to something more related. So what is your name? And then we still have our new line. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get that string. So there's a way we're going to do this, and the reason we use it is because it works better with strings. So I have get line, which gets, and I don't know if you can see the very, very small text, but there is help that eventually you'll be able to read this and make good sense of it. But basically what we have here is whatever the person types in, it's going to get the whole line, the input, the whole line, and it's going to save it as their name. Okay? So then we're going to have it go ahead and say one more message. It's going to say, nice to meet you. All right, and I don't know if you notice this, but I have a red line right underneath here, and that is a problem. If I were to run this, it's going to bug out. It says, would you like to build it? It's out of date. Yes, I want to build it. And it goes and starts building, and then watch this. It says build failed. There were build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? Do you just want to do the last one that worked? And we say no. So now we get an error list from Visual Studio. So if you ever don't get an error list and you're wondering where that is, we can go to View and Error List, okay? And the same thing, if we needed a Solution Explorer, we didn't know where it was, we could view Solution Explorer. So we're going to look at our error list. It says it expected a semicolon. And we can also see that if we scroll over, oh, look at that. Number 7, I didn't put a semicolon. Remember I said we want to end our lines with semicolon usually. And you're going to notice that 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 all have a semicolon at the end of the line. And that means pretty much everything in between these two blocks here. All right. So now we have what is your name? We've got the get line, name, and nice to meet you. And I'm going to run it and see what happens. Now, hopefully, there's no errors. It says, what is your name? I'm going to type it in. I'm going to type in Andy. Ooh, it closed out really fast, but I don't know if you saw it. It did actually. I'm going to run it one more time. What is your name? And I'm going to type in Andy and look really, really quickly right here. It said, nice to meet you. I don't know. Maybe pause the video. It definitely said it, but it closed so quickly. Why didn't it close quickly last time? Well, it didn't close quickly because we had something here stopping it. What was it? std cn dot ignore. And then guess what? Semicolon, right? You saw the red line. All right, so we're going to run it again. And what you see when we run it this time is it pauses. It waits for us right there. It says, nice to meet you. But what we don't have is anything with that name. It just saved it, but it didn't use that name. So what we want to do is we want to say, nice to meet you, name. There is a funky way to do this, so pay close attention. We got C out, and that means everything after here, it's going to output at the screen. And we already have a message there. So we're going to put another message. This time, we're not going to see out Andy or David or whatever name you think it is because you don't know who you're talking to. So we're going to see out name. So if we follow the trail, what we have is name is declared, then we save name, and then down here, we actually see it out. I don't know if you can see the little red line. Where's my typo? And if I scroll over, it says, hey, something doesn't match here. And if you notice, I use count instead of see out. Okay? So make sure a lot of people will just have a little typo like that and won't even see it. So when we play it this time, let's see what happens. What is your name? I'm going to type in Frank. Nice to meet you, Frank. All right, so it actually reused the name even though I changed the name up because it saves it. Here, whatever I type in here, it saves his name and we can reuse it. So I love it, except it doesn't actually look like English. So let's see if we can polish this up a little bit. Nice to meet you. And apparently, I think proper English, I'm not an English teacher, but I think proper English would have a space and a comma. Nice to meet you, comma, and then Frank's name. So I'm going to play that. That looks like it's going to be a little bit more normal. Cross your fingers. I'm going to do Sally. My name is Sally. Nice to meet you, Sally. That looks pretty good, except an English teacher would get on me about not having punctuation. So I'm going to toss punctuation at the end. I can't just toss it like that. So I want an exclamation point. Anytime I toss text, I have to put it in quotes like that. And so I need to do something a little different. I'm going to add a whole new line with my end quote. And let's see if it works out and looks nice. Let's pick a name. Let's go with Ashley. What is your name? Ashley. Nice to meet you, Ashley. And that is not only doing output, but we've moved on to input.